Troy Kearns, real estate investor, bringing it to you hot and fresh from the Las Vegas studios with my good buddy Carl Bassett, entrepreneur, probably one of the guys who's flipped and wholesaled more houses than anybody I know. Probably one of the guys who's done more cool stuff, more franchises. You've had like a Blimpies, am I right?
Yeah, I did. Well, years ago.
Didn't you have like a Fantastic Sam's?
Yeah, I did.
Fantastic Sam's, Blimpies. You got a Homevestors franchise. Mm-hmm. You've got another
Restoration One
franchise. Tell us about yourself.
So I was a real estate appraiser, and when the market went down, I stayed in it, but enough regulation changed. The Dodd-Frank Act changed it, and I just didn't love appraising. I hated it, to be honest with you. It really changed the industry. So I'd always flipped houses on the side, so I decided to go in full-time flipping, started full-time flipping, and then joined that franchise, right, for the name. It's still me. No one tells me what to buy, what not to buy, but that franchise is just my marketing brand and allows me to get access to deals.
Well, you're a franchise guy. You have been.
I have.
There's franchise guys, and then there's guys who aren't franchise guys.
Agreed.
I mean, the hair cutting salon, the Restoration One, Homevestors. You believe in the name and the product, and so do a lot of other people. So that's why you've stuck with it, right?
Yeah, no, I think so. There's a lot of power in brand name recognition.
Right.
And that's worked well for me.
Right.
So.
And just to guys let you a little bit of know about Carl and mine's history. So I had been flipping houses. I'd been going into houses. I've been doing all of that. And then I felt like, let's get better. Let's buy into a franchise. And Carl was the
development agent. So in the Western U.S., you buy a franchise, you go through someone like me to get in it.
Right.
It's the We Buy Ugly Houses franchise. That's what Homevestors is.
So Homevestors is the We Buy Ugly Houses. They've got like a character. What's his name?
It's a UGG. It's a caveman. So you'll see the caveman and the bright yellow and red billboard or whatever that says We Buy Ugly Houses.
Based out of Dallas, Texas. Got how many franchises total?
About 1,200 offices. Nationwide.
Okay, so we're going to talk about you specifically, and the reason why Carl is such an expert is, how many guys have you helped set up a new franchise?
So when LA, when we launched in California, I would fly in, I'd teach classes. So I've taught classes and or have people come through my office, somewhere close to 200 people that I've coached or mentored and trained. So.
Awesome. So how many deals do you think, and I know this is just like a random question, just your best estimate, how many deals have you wholesaled? And how long have you been doing it, and how many deals have you wholesaled?
I'm close to 1,000 properties right now, total. I'm going to guess, and I know we're real close. I don't know my exact number, but I mean, I know this year I cross it sometime by June is what I guess. So I would guess that I've wholesaled over half, about 500, and then I've retailed the other 5 and kept.
Okay, so what does retailed mean for those people who don't know what retailed means? It's a wholesale deal, kind of. Just means you don't put any money in it, right?
Yeah, so on the retail side, so I buy the deal. So I put it under contract, I buy it, my entity, I'm in control, right? And I'm going in, I'm remodeling it, and I'm using a real estate agent, and I'm selling it. So
okay, so sometimes, maybe I was screwing up. So
all right,
Wholetail. Okay. I was thinking Wholetail.
Wholetail. So Wholetail is I buy it, I don't do the remodel. Maybe I just cleaned it out, right? It's trashed, and there's a couch in there that smells. So I clean the whole thing out. I have it professionally clean, and then I just show it right on the market. And it could have a non-working bathroom. It could have a bad roof. It could have whatever. I'm just saying to the next guy, here, you fix it. Here you go.
Why are you doing that right now in today's market?
So we do that because of demand. At the end of the day, I can retail it all the way to the end. I can get just a little bit more money, or I can be fast, and it's just the speed. I throw it out there on the market in 3 days. I have 8 offers. I take one, and it's fairly quick. I don't, especially on that Wholetail side. So I'm just buying it, throwing it on the market immediate without doing repairs, and it's just fast. And so I'm able to turn the money faster, and it's lower fees, but it's also that credit line or cash that I'm using is rolling at a quicker pace. Right. And I make a little less, but I do more of them during the year, right? At the end of the day, while there's so much demand, I think there's actually a little better profit return there than going full retail. For sure.
So now, one of the things that we have in common is our similarities and our differences. You always said that I'm better at the rental game and you're better at the flip. Well, you haven't said it. We just said it before we talked about this.
It's true. It's true.
So he's a better flipper than me. He's flipped more properties than me. He's a better wholesaler than me. Well, I don't know about flipper. We're gonna say wholesaling because I haven't really done as many wholesale deals, and I think I've done probably as many flips. So we're just gonna argue that. We did do one flip together, which we both screwed the pooch on. I think I will take a majority of the responsibility, probably 75% of it. I just didn't realize what a 22% interest loan was going to cost.
I was 20. It was only 20. It wasn't 22. So usually I don't. And have I used that recently? No. But years ago, there's credit lines out there, and it's almost like putting it on a credit card. It's not, right? It's a physical credit line. They lien the property, but it's about a 20%. And if your crews aren't on it, but there's no points, right? So you're in and out. So if it's going to be in about 60 days is that window, right? So
right.
If about 60 days, you're going to get in, get out of that property. The credit line, even at that high of an interest rate, makes sense. If not, then no. I mean, you can go get an 8% loan and do a better deal.
All right. So a lot of people watching this channel right now are totally beginners, and they don't even know what wholesaling is. Break it down to somebody like they're brand new.
So exit strategies. So I put something under contract. I haven't even bought it yet.
What are we talking about? Real estate?
Let's go real estate. Let's just say it's a single family home in Las Vegas, Nevada. It can be any area, and I've bought all over the U.S. But a single family home in Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's say it's worth $300,000. Okay, and I can buy it for $210 right now. Why can I buy it at that discount? Because it probably needs some work, and I got to be fast at it. In other words, I got to close it in 2 weeks. It's got to be a quick type thing. So I buy it for $210. We'll say $200 for easier math. I buy it for $200. I can sell it for $300, and I need to put maybe $40 into it.
Right.
Okay. So in a scenario like that, exit strategy number one. So remember, I just have a contract. I haven't physically closed on anything yet. I can take that contract and I can sell it to another guy as an assignment, and that's kind of a wholesale deal. The word assignment and wholesale across the country are pretty much synonymous. Some call it one or the other. They're really the same. So I go to Troy and I say, hey, my crews are busy, or I don't have the money to take this down right now. Why don't I assign it to you for, let's say, $220,000?
Correct.
It works for you. You look at the math, say a little tighter, but yeah, I can make that work. I want the deal. So then I assign it to you. At closing, you close the deal. I get $20,000. He pays closing costs. There shouldn't be a lot of other expenses that come out of my side, right? I mean, It's kind of similar. And then once that happens, the only thing I've got, I've never closed. I have no risk. Maybe my earnest money, $1,000, something like that, $2,000. I usually do 500 in earnest money.
I was going to say, you're going way higher than me, man.
Being honest, I don't do a whole lot of earnest money.
Yeah.
And so that's the only thing I am risking in this. And then the only thing I can make, though, is that assignment fee. It's the $20,000.
But it's a $20,000 with no risk.
Yeah.
You're usually doing it with trusted buyers, guys that you know are going to close.
Yep.
So that's one point to shoot off on that. We just kind of did like a video the other day, and I said, if you're going to start in wholesaling, build your buyers list first.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you get a deal and you don't have anybody to sell it to.
So a big piece of advice on that is, do you know who knows who? There's a lot of liars out there. There's a lot more liars out there than there are really guys who close. So number one is that the title companies actually know if this person is legit or not. And then number two, enter their entity. They're giving you an entity, and you type it in. They own no real estate in the county that you're buying in. It's like, this guy's not real. He's phony. So now he's a straw man, and he's going to go try to patch it to the next guy. Who's going to patch it to the next guy. So it means that the chance of it actually closing are very slim. I want to get, if I have the contract, I want to go directly to the guy that knows how to buy. And so his entity should be full of real estate. If his entity's not, I can't search his name and see that he's on 32 properties right now. He's up in the night.
And is a guy who's serious about buying going to have a problem showing you?
Yeah, exactly. No. And any of the guys that come to me, immediately I'm going to show them proof of funds. Another thing, if someone's just bragging, I bought this and I bought this, I bought this. There's no one in today's society that doesn't have an app on their phone with their bank account information.
Right.
And I could show you right now.
Scoreboard,
show you know what I mean? You see what I mean? Scoreboard, it's like you're at a game and someone's ripping you. It's like, hey, we're ahead, scoreboard. At the end of the day, the scoreboard is, do they have money in their account? Do they have the entity name, etc.? They could show you that right there on the phone. You just have to kind of hold them accountable.
Wait, let me ask you, if you want a deal right now, are you going to show the people that you got the money to close?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
nothing to hide. Nothing to hide.
Nothing to hide. The guys who are hiding it, there's a reason they're hiding it.
Exactly.
They're not real buyers.
Because they're straw. They're straw straw, and there's more straw out there than there is concrete. Legit, guys.
Yeah, right. So, okay, so let's talk about so that's wholesaling. You just assign the contract, you get a rip, you found the deal. It's the best way to start. We both agree with that.
Totally agree. Build up some cash. Why in the world would you try to chase the top dollar on your first deal when you can go try to assign? I'd rather assign 4 deals than retail 1. You'll make your money quicker.
Yeah, you'll make your money. You'll learn how to find deals. You'll build
confidence. You're comping everything.
Yeah, and you already had that because you were an appraisal. But for most people who weren't didn't have that job, you're going to want to learn how to find deals, exactly what they look like, and so that you can evaluate them. And then once you become good at that, you get into flipping.
Yeah, I agree.
And flipping is where you make more money, but you got to have a mix of both sometimes. Like sometimes there's deals that you don't want to take down.
Right now, contractors are hard to come by. Good contractors. If you've got a contractor that's just not busy, he says, I can start tomorrow, there's a reason. He's about to give you an education in what not to do on construction. So, I mean, and no one just moved into town, or it doesn't exist. That's a unicorn. You just don't chase it. At the end of the day,
they've been in the construction business for 30 years, but they have no references.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, exit strategy number 2, you've wholesaled 3-4 deals. Exit strategy number 2 is I've got the contract, and I'm going to go get a credit line. I'm going to go to Lending Home. I'm going to go to Anchor. I'm going to go to one of the big national hard money companies.
So let's go through who those are. That's good. Right. That's good for information.
So Lending Home, big one. Anchor, I think, is a big one.
Yep.
Marshall Reddick's a big one that's doing a good amount right now. Right. You notice that all of those are out of California, and there's a reason. They're either out of New York or California.
Have you used that one? I got this place calling me all the time in Washington. God, I can't remember their name. Evergreen, I want to say.
Evergreen. Okay, so Evergreen, 5 Arch was bought by Evergreen.
Okay.
Evergreen, yeah. So I used to use this company 5 Arch, and then suddenly it became Evergreen. That's them. Same company, and they just acquired multiple lenders, so they still do business in Nevada. I have nothing negative to say about them. I
would argue that buying real estate is easier today than it ever has been before. Oh, yeah. I mean, when I started, I didn't have hard money. You had it. I didn't have it. I got called by Lending Home. Actually, I was doing all subject twos, borrowing, bleeding out my mom's account to do one.
I was borrowing private at really high rates, and all of a sudden, game changer with all these. There are people now, when I go to one of these Homevestor conventions, there are 16, 20. I'm hiding from the lenders. They're chasing me down, trying to get me. Hey, we'd like to open a $5 million credit line in your name. Please, please, please. I mean, they'll do anything to get you to sign up. So it's not like it was. You do 3-4 deals, and the lenders will throw money at you.
Right. So. Now they've got apps like we use Deal Machine here. Is there something that you use specifically that Homevestors uses for driving for dollars?
Yeah, they use it. There's a Salesforce system. Agreed. Similar. It's all proprietary. It's in that brand, but yes.
Okay, good. So you guys have a CRM that you use to drive for dollars,
and there's apps where you can take a picture of the home. It'll send them a letter, that kind of thing. It's all built into that Homevestor system.
Sweet. All right, so that's a run. We could talk real estate all day about that sort of thing. I want to get into some other things. Now, first of all, which markets are you in?
All right. So I live in Las Vegas, so I flip majority of my homes here in Vegas. I do have rentals in Vegas, and I try to take down at least 5 a year. Okay. But I cherry pick and find the right ones. But I don't take down. I take down a lot of properties. Take down means I fund it in my entity, but I flip majority of the time here in Vegas. That's by far the majority of what I do right now is flip.
Have you ever lost money on a deal?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you're still doing it?
If you haven't lost money on a deal, you're not a gambler. Like you're not, and I don't mean that in a negative way, meaning you don't have the guts to chase a few things. But yeah, of course I've lost money.
Right. Yeah, you got to take some shots, right?
Yeah.
Don't take shots at the beginning.
Yep.
But build your confidence, and then every once in a while you take a shot.
Yeah.
And you get your 100%. Butt kicked, and you realize that wasn't the right shot to take.
Yeah, agreed.
Or you'll take it a different way next time.
You get your education either way, right? I mean, you don't learn this at a university, but the school of hard knocks or whatever, you learn it, and you pay a lot of money for that education. So I'm in Vegas. In 2015, I bought a number of rental properties in Reno.
Okay.
A lot of people from the Vegas market look down on Reno. Oh, it's this little town. Reno is a more competitive market. It is a higher price market. There's better rents, and that market has grown more dramatically than Vegas will ever.
How many rentals did you buy?
I bought about 60 rentals up in that area.
60 rentals. Did you buy them all in 2015?
No, until about 17, and it just stopped making sense, and that's when we stopped buying. But I still own it, and I've slowly slid backwards.
So what have you done? Now we just talked about this, but we're going to talk to it live now.
Okay.
What did you just do with those rentals? Because we're doing the same thing, and we have never talked about it. So it's interesting. We're doing the exact same thing.
Okay, so the best way to do it is a microcosm all the way down to one property. Okay, if I use one as an example, then you'll say, okay, it all makes sense instead of talking broadly. So there was 713 L Street in Sparks.
Okay.
It's on Pyramid and Sparks. It's kind of a busy road. It's not a phenomenal area, but it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, but it's a clean-looking house.
Right.
I remodeled it, and we rented it out since 2015. I paid $102,000 for that house.
102 acquisition cost.
Yep.
Did you put any money into it?
Yeah, I threw about 7 into it, and we got it rented. It was very light initially.
110 in. Okay.
Then after the people moved out, which was the beginning of this year.
All right, so one renter in the whole time, you got to turn it at any rate.
Yeah, in January, tenant moves out, so I've owned it for 2050, 5+ years, a little over 5 years. And then I take it, this time I spent about, I think it was like $16,000.
How much were you getting for rent of that whole time?
It started at $1,000 and then it went up to $1,600. Why? Because the rental market's stronger there than it is in other areas. It's actually a pretty strong rental market. So then I went up to $1,600 toward the end. So I did get good income. It was, considering I had 102, you know what I mean? Now I owe a little less than $90,000 on this property.
So you owe 90. What's it worth today?
So I just sold it.
Okay. What was it worth? We
listed it for $299, and we had 36 offers. I haven't had 36 in Vegas.
In a while.
I guess then again, if you sat around long enough, you're going to. I had 36 in about a day and a half.
So what did you end up selling it for?
We ended up selling it for $330, and someone had to agreed to pay up to $300,000 or $30,000 in cash over appraisal, which appraisal came in at like $305, so we needed that.
So would you say now's a good time to buy?
Now is an okay time to buy in the right markets. Reno, would I buy a rental property today in Reno? No, I wouldn't. No. I just wouldn't. The price is too high, doesn't make sense. As long as you go to another market, so that's what I did. So then that money then went into a 1031 exchange.
Right, what's that do? What's that allow you to do?
So that means that I'm going to sell it, but I don't have to pay the taxes, those capital gains. In this case, it'd be a long-term capital gain, spent over 1 year.
So let's break down the math. So that was a $330, so let's call it a $120,000 gain, let's call it. Just for easy numbers.
Yeah.
You had a $120,000 taxable gain. With that, your tax range would probably be about 40%.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a $44,000 check to the IRS.
Yep.
And you wrote no check to the IRS, and instead you bought how many houses?
Instead, it went to the exchange company. I didn't touch it, so the money sat at the exchange. And then the goal was to buy 10, but I ended up buying 7. But one of them was a little larger home. We put a little more cash into that one. So I bought 7 houses in the Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas.
Kansas City, you're impeaching on my market, man.
I know. So I made sure that I competed against you on every one of those deals.
Good, man.
So, so then I moved it to Kansas City. But then I can turn one rental that made decent income, and you could say, why, you were in a pretty good position. Well, Reno had peaked, and it was sitting there, and maybe it goes up 2-3%. Maybe that's great. It's like, but Kansas City, I'm turning around buying $100,000 houses again in what I believe is actually a better economy.
Right. So, see
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
so,
it's nuts.
Why do you like Kansas City? I'm going to go through the reasons I do, and then you can go through the reasons you do. Number one, the city's invested in their infrastructure. Yeah. They've got new trains. They've got new transportation systems. There's a massive amount of distressed properties in that market, and the investors are the first ones in, and you're starting to see guys out there. I don't see a ton of dumpsters, but I'm starting to see a few, and I know other smart guys like you, like Nick Marietta, like all these other guys are starting to buy rentals there, and I bought like almost 80 houses in 12 months last year, and I know you were ahead of me or close.
I just cleared now with different investors. Some of it's just mine. A lot of those are just mine, but I have investment partners on a few of them as well.
Same with me, yes.
And so I've cleared 100 now. I'm over 100 this last year.
Okay.
Investment and technically just over a year because I started in like December of 19. So I mean
I thought I was going to easily beat him because I had talked to his competition. They said he stopped during COVID for a bit.
No, I kept buying.
Okay.
Just probably an investment strategy for me to get a little more leverage. I don't know.
So let's talk about that. So now you got 7 houses, and you were making $1,600 a month off that one house. How much did you project to make an income off those 7 houses?
It'll be over $2,000. It'll be over $2,000 a month. But the appreciation is so much higher as well.
Oh yeah. So
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because everything that if you're buying it for 30 grand, they're already worth 90 or 100.
So Kansas City market. Initially, I went in and I said, I'm going to make $400 a house net income per house.
Right.
That was my theory, and it hasn't played out exactly. Construction goes a little higher. There's a lot more repairs to the foundations.
Yep.
So there's a few surprises that I get in there, but I end up right around $300. And some homes are $450, and other homes are $182, and it all evens out. When I take the math and I take 50 of them at a time, and I go do the math, I end up about $300 in positive cash flow. I pay my taxes, my insurance, reserves for repairs. The management company handles the entire thing for me, and then I can net about $300 out.
Wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, I mean 7 houses, I'm right around $2,100.
And why are you buying houses now? Why didn't you buy them?
Okay. So we had this conversation where you were out in Gulf Shores buying houses like crazy, and I was telling you I had a business partner that was not very big on rentals.
Right.
That was part of it. Okay, but the other part was it's hard to get yourself out of your comfort zone. Okay,
right.
And income, which is flipping. For me, I was flipping homes to make income. Income is crack. It's a drug. When you get used to that drug, then you say, well, I need a nicer truck. Maybe I should get a better house. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And then you start living your lifestyle of that income.
Right.
And then you have to take a step back and say, what I'm doing is it's an IV drip, it's a drug.
Uh-huh.
I have to back off. I have to lower my standard to this, and then everything above that I'm going to invest.
So you had to sober up.
Oh, I did big time. And so then I had to step back, and I realized it when I went to Reno in 2015. And then I was like, what business do I want to be in?
Right, because at the end of the day, you can back off the income activities. Just that one move you made in 2015 has changed everything you did because you got out of your comfort zone and did something that you probably knew you should have been doing a long time ago. And now you're like, you can't go back in time, so you're making up for it by buying massive amounts of properties, which is kind of like, you're very similar to my friend. Like, I was the first guy. I'm a slow and steady guy. I like chip. When you go, you just hit the gas and the accelerator. You're like, all right, I'm in Kansas City. It's 100 properties now.
And I couldn't afford 100 on my own, being up front. So then I took business partners on in the Kansas City market, and I'm close to half those houses. I'm 42 of those houses, so the rest are with business partners. But I would rather have a piece of something, half of something, than half of nothing, while I slowly wait for more cash to come in, etc.
All right, so now you made that transition. Where else are you buying rentals?
Tampa, Florida, and Orlando, Florida.
Okay. And what do you like about that market? What do you like about Kansas City? And how many rentals do you plan to buy there?
I believe, guys, let's just look at Orlando. Okay, the Orlando market alone is not much bigger than Vegas. It's about 2.6, 2.7 million people. And then you look at where's the potential growth, and that is the fastest growing demographic in the United States over the next 10 years, projected. Now, so then you can say, well, how do you research this, and how do you find? And every time I read an article on Yahoo's real estate, it's really just flash. It's like
none of that stuff. You got to go look at it.
Yeah. So I agree with looking at it, but there's a company out there called Housing Alerts, and it's so you go get the advice from really intelligent people, and I just had to pay this money, and then this guy goes in and analyzes all the markets in the United States, and the areas that I thought were the best were not.
Wow.
And in the same state. Miami is one of the last places on earth to buy a rental property, but just up the street in Orlando is one of the best. Tampa, one of the best.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's not even the same state. You can't. It's like market specific, and regulation's huge on that.
Right, because
totally.
Miami's full of regulations.
And when I went to Kansas City, the same guy was giving me property. He said, "Why don't you start taking a look at St. Louis?" So I flew out to St. Louis. I love visiting St. Louis. A great town.
Right.
It's a horrible town to invest. A real long-term rental.
I'm glad you said that because
it is horrible.
Everybody keeps saying, "Why don't you go to St. Louis? Why don't you go to St. Louis?" And I'm like, you know, my sister went to school right outside there in a town called Elsa, Illinois. It's a small private school called Principi. I went there a bunch of times. I'm like, it just never spoke to me, you know? And like, you gotta feel it, I feel like, a little bit. Like, you could have all the right matrices could tell you. It's like getting matched up with a blind date and you're like, okay, the profile says I should love this chick, you meet her, and there's no chemistry, right? And like, no, I'm not dating anybody.
But there's something to it.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Kansas City's easy to date.
Kansas City is like, you get there, you're like, all right, she's cool. We'll hang around, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, like, it's a good market to invest in. You feel the vibe. When I was in Gulfport, I like to invest in markets I believe in personally.
Yeah.
Is what I'm kind of trying to say. There's got to be a match. You got to make a match with that. Like, if you don't believe it in your head that it's a good market, even if it is a good market, you're probably going to fail because you're crippled, right?
I 100% agree on that. There's certain cities that I fly into and it makes sense. And I look at it, the feel of it's great. I stuck my toe in the pool in St. Louis, and I'm on the way out on every property.
Yeah, like Hattiesburg, Mississippi, same thing. Love the state, invest heavily in the state. I invested in the market. It's too slow. There's no contractors available. I mean, a plumber there costs more than it does in Las Vegas, Nevada, you know, and it's a cheaper market. Everything else is cheaper except for that because there's no competition. You know?
Well, that makes sense. It does. I find the same thing.
Well, have you ever tried to eat Thai food in Kansas City? It's like $20 for a plate. You come out to Las Vegas, it's $7.
Yeah, very true. Very
so,
true.
you know, supply, demand, right?
Yeah. Each one of those cities, though, that I'm in, there's a different strategy, a little bit different strategy. Nothing is exactly the same, but the advantage is I have a strategy is my point. And the other thing that I would bring up that I think is crucial is mentors. You can't read it out of a book, and you will screw yourself royally if you pay a ton of money for these big online programs. It gets these guys. A lot of them join the Homevestor system after, and I just tell them, it's like they come in, they say, I spent $100,000 on this, and it's like,
yeah, if you're spending $100,000 for anything, like we're actually going to be launching a online program for just investing, but I'm going to sell it for like under $1,000.
Well, but you need to buy from someone that physically buys, not from a guy that lives in his parents' basement.
Right, or somebody who's like, the guys who do those seminars, they never are the guys that actually are selling seminars.
Exactly.
Like Fan Merrill.
Yes. So I've
been to 8 of his conferences to go meet the guy. He's never been there.
Yeah, agreed. That kind of thing, he's trained guys that memorize scripts. And I think you need for someone to do it. The other thing is that 2 years ago is a different market than today.
Right.
So you've got to have someone doing it today to give you the advice. So I have mentors, and I'm always searching out guys that are really good at doing what we do,
right,
and sitting down talking with them and interesting them just a little bit. They're not going to give me 3 straight days, but they're going to give me a dinner break, a lunch break, whatever, and they're going to sit down, they're going to take my phone call, and this is my strategy. What would you do different? How would you finance that? How would you structure my partnership with this investor?
Right.
When you run into problems where, eviction problems, what are you doing? These guys know, they've been around the block, and you've just got to always have, if you hang around with too many guys like you'll stay the same, right? You got to look for those guys 5 rungs up on the ladder and get them to mentor you and get you going.
Yeah, I'm trying to join a mastermind group. It's $25,000 a year, and I literally, Ryan Pineda's in it,
out of Dallas? It seems like they're all out of Dallas.
No. This is called Collective Genius. Ryan Pineda, Casey Ryan's in it. And then there's another guy in it, and I got 2 of the 3 to say yes, and I don't know if the third guy is going to say. I mean, it's his choice not to let me in, but my reason for stating that is everybody that I share this same platform with, like you, a lot of my friends who are investors, all have a strong conviction to investing into themselves and into mentorship. Do you have a problem spending money on education?
No, I just joined a mastermind group out of Maryland because mastermind groups are always really nervous about too many guys in one city. Have you noticed that?
Right.
That's the problem.
Right.
You're a shoo-in, but there's 2 guys from our city, and that's, you know what I mean?
Well, I was like, I'm in Mississippi, I'm in Kansas City, figure it out.
I'm like, so same. So there's these guys, real estate investment roundtable. They're out of Maryland. And I talk with them, and they seriously research their people. They don't just let anyone in. Same thing, you have to go in as a referral, and then they research you, and if what you say you bought is not what you bought, you're not in.
Right,
right. So I just joined that one. So
good thing, I always say get a coach, get a mentor, but more important than that, get the right coach, get the right mentorship.
It's buying now.
Right. I mean, if you're spending, I would say, if you go to a seminar and the whole pitch is the seminar, and they're not trying to educate you, like if you look at all of our videos that we're putting in right now, we're trying to just explain to people how to do things so that we can build our audience. So make sure you subscribe, like, comment on the channel. And if you like something that Carl had to say, make sure that you like it. We'll get him back on the show. He's involved in a lot of businesses. Let's talk about a couple others, because I know we've been talking like a long time, but I know you got like 10 other businesses, and I want to ask one more question about this business before we jump to the next one. What do you like better, wholesaling, flipping, or owning rentals?
Owning rentals. Rentals create wealth. The other ones create income. Income is an addiction, and income never makes you extremely wealthy. Doctors are the best example. Doctors spend majority of their income. They burn through that cash, do they not?
Yep.
And as soon as that's turned off, they have a 401k or retirement income, but they always have that craving of income. Investors have these rental properties, and those rental properties pay me the rest of my life. And so I could, thank goodness, I'm in a spot where I could stop and say, okay, I'm just going to retire. I don't want to. I'm young enough. I'm not going to do that. But I mean, I can stop, and that's the difference between me and someone that's addicted to income. But the wealth that is generated through rentals, night and day different.
Right.
Flipping, though, will get you the education to get to the rentals. I would agree. Wholesaling will get you the education to get to flipping. It's like you stair-step it up.
Well, and if that's your way of making income, you got to do it.
It's not a bad thing. Agreed.
So, do you like what do you like better? Do you like wholesaling or flipping better?
Well, I like wholesaling. I mean, if I were to wholesale, because I'm not in the product as long, right? I mean, why would you? The risk is lower, and you've got more time on your hands.
Right.
Do you not? I mean, you're not babysitting contractors. Contractors are a major problem in our industry right now.
For sure.
For sure. Headache.
Yeah. So. I mean, I got 99 problems in the contracts, 98 of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. So if you can avoid it, do it. I still do it.
Right.
I still do it because I can get a little more out of my property, but wholesaling is easier, no doubt.
And plus there's a kind of there's an unspoken thing, or maybe a spoken thing within our industry, is like, if you have a good contractor, keep him
busy. Agreed, 100%. And if I lose my crews, then it's really hard to build them back up again. So I agree, because someone else will snag them. I promise you, they're sitting in the bushes watching me to slow down for 1 month so they can snag these guys.
Listen, what would you do if you were looking for contractors? Would you go drive other job sites?
Yep.
Or would you go and find people on Craigslist that say they're contractors?
Yeah, so what did you do in Kansas City?
Well, we did all the above, right?
Same with
so
me.
we did the Craigslist, we did the everything, and we tried everybody out. And the reality is that there's no perfect science, and the guys who are the best are going to want the most money, and they're not for flipping. So if you want to make money in flipping, you're going to have to do some babysitting.
Yeah.
If you want to find a perfect contractor, you're going to need to find the guy with no business sense, that has a great quality of work and doesn't care about not making that much money. You need to find a guy who can turn it out on a profit, knows how to do multiple deals that can make money doing it, and has a bunch of crews that are starving for work. And maybe these are B crews, they're not your A crews. You have your A crews for your A flips.
Yeah, agreed.
So are all your guys licensed, insured, and bonded?
No.
Okay.
No.
But only on your rentals, right? Only. But that's the thing.
But I still use licensed guys all the time. I mean, it's not like you don't say one or the other, but do you have to use, working on a manufactured home pump, I'm not using a licensed guy.
Right.
I can't. The licensed guy would tell me, hey, I've got availability in October. It's like a months away. I can't sit on something.
Right.
So.
All right. So you like wholesaling better than flipping. I understand why. For me, I like flipping, but I like wholesaling, but I've never spent the time and energy developing a wholesale business that I have the amount of buyers out there. So for me, it's just easier to flip it and close it down versus, or I'll call like 2 or 3 guys like you and I'll be like, hey, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Call my core network, because I haven't built a wholesaling business. I built a flipping business and a rental business, and you've built all those businesses. Now you're adding to that. Plus you had a barber shop. Plus you had a.
That was a while ago. My wife ran it. My wife ran that.
And a sandwich shop, and now you got what?
I also have a restoration company. So restoration it's called Restoration One. Okay.
Is that a franchise?
It is a franchise, and it helps me with the marketing, right? And Restoration One does like water damage, fire damage, mold remediation, and it allows me to get, so I'm not afraid, a home burns to the ground, I'm not afraid to buy that home, I know what to do. The education on that one is steep. It's hard to go fire from significant fire all the way through, and so, but I'm not afraid of those houses, I'll do those houses. And so that, I felt like it would
you
match.
rather restore them or would you rather flip them? Where do you make more money?
Well, my business partner runs that whole restoration company, so I don't have any of the day-to-day. I'm more of a financial investor in that, and on strategy sessions we sit down and talk, but he runs that whole business. So, I mean, I would rather flip it than restore it. So,
right,
because you're dealing with an insurance company. Insurance companies like dealing with the federal government. There's red tape. There's difficulties. So I would rather control it on my side.
Will they try to screw you out of money?
Yeah, I mean they'll agree to a bid, and at the end they'll come back and say, well, we can only do this, this, and this. So yeah, that's common. But also when you work with an insurance company, you do all the work, you pay for all the expenses because you have a lot of materials and labor costs, and you get paid 6 months later, maybe a year later. Honestly,
right?
It's a lot. It's hard.
So let's talk about that business. This was a brand new move for you. How long ago did you start the business? Why did you start the business? Let's start with those 2 questions. Why did you start the business, and how did you start the business?
So, started the business because my business partner from before, Ron Powell, came to me and said, hey, let's do this. Started about 2.5 years ago. We underestimated the amount of capital that would go into it. We'll both admit that.
What did you think it would cost?
I thought it cost about $150,000. We budgeted $200,000 to make this happen. Okay. I think the reality is closer to a little over $500,000.
$500,000.
Yeah, and it's just very equipment heavy. The fans, the dehumidifiers, all the equipment, the trucks, the vans. It's just very payroll. It's all very, very expensive to get in. Very expensive. But that's an advantage because, by the way, once I clear that hurdle, that's a gigantic hurdle that the next guy that wants to compete with me can't do.
Right.
Or he doesn't have enough equipment. He can't take the big jobs like I do because I have the equipment. He might be in it on a shoestring budget and a tiny amount, but he can't take any of the big jobs, which means the insurance companies say you're not worth anything to us.
Right.
So I think there's an advantage to have that barrier to entry to be large. But I would say the property after about 1.5 years stood on its own. And meaning it brings in enough capital that it's not a problem. But I have not taken $1 out of that company as a 50% owner in 2.5 years.
Man, that sounds like quick toe. That sounds like quick toe. You know what I mean? I always just say, man, I'm just stay in your lane. Sometimes these businesses that we try, they teach us more about, you learn more about starting the business and what to do than you actually. It ends up being a business and it ends up being profitable and somebody else manages it, so it's not really that big of a waste of your time and energy anymore, but it's like real estate's where it's at.
Real estate's where it's at. Profitability on real estate is definitely where it's at. That has potential, but the amount of work and the time and the sweat and the money that's soaked into that to eventually sell it 10 years or something like that down the road, it'll be unbelievable. Well, I wouldn't go do it again.
Right.
Having said that.
Okay, that's good to know. So I wouldn't open a towing business again, but I would have gone through that experience again.
But I would own the real estate the towing business rented from me.
Well, speaking of that, the most money I made in the towing business, or the only money I made in the towing business, was flipping the land that I bought with an SBA loan.
It's so true. It reminds me of founder of McDonald's stating,
Ray
Kroc stating, you know, he's speaking to a school business and he says, you know, you think I'm in the hamburger business, I'm in the real estate business. At the end of the day, the guy made all his money, not all, but he made his money through real estate. He made it through owning it because he owned, think of where McDonald's are located all over the world. They've got some of the most prime real estate in the world. And that's the business he was in. And I feel like I learned from that, like,
well, and those who have watched The Founder learn that was his way to get out of a bad deal.
Yeah.
Like he cut a bad deal, and so he outfoxed these guys, and then he got in the real estate game, and then it became a great deal, and then he ended up owning the San Diego Padres. And like, I mean, the deal is real estate. The deal is, and all these failures, like we could call Restoration 1 a failure. I could call Quick Tow a failure. I don't call it a failure. I call it a learn.
I learn. And it's got still upside potential in the future. It does, but I just love my real estate.
It just brings you back to your passion. Yeah,
exactly.
The passion is real estate. You follow your passion. And Ron's passion might be Restoration 1, and that might take this thing off to the end of the earth. But like when you are acquiring your rental portfolio and you know it's for you, it's like and you're building something for yourself. When you flip, it's like, okay, next one.
Yeah.
But when you start adding up those rentals, and then you saw that, hey, 5 years ago I only bought these properties for this much, and I took my eye off it for 5 years, and I transitioned over to this market. Oh my gosh, and now these houses are worth $130,000 more than I paid for them 5 years ago. So not only do I have massive upside with no taxes, which are flips, you're paying taxes up the wazoo.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to at a minimum, you got to try to balance it a little bit just for the tax liability,
right?
Especially potentially going forward.
So one piece of advice I'm going to give you may already know it, is one of the reasons. Now I own this building that we're in right here, and one of the reasons that I buy buildings is for the tax benefit. So we take on a building like this. Like when I bought this building, we occupied 51% of it. We bought it for 10% down, which was $120,000 at the time. Now I've owned this building for 8 years now. It's now worth 3.1 based off the NOI and the current next door neighbor's comp that's about ready to sell.
Yeah.
And it allowed us a huge tax benefit because we could write off the depreciation through a cost segregation study right away. Then it basically taking all your profit away from all your flips, all of your things, and you've got an asset now that's producing cash flow again. Mm-hmm. So real estate has so many exit strategies.
Yeah, and then you could 1031 and throw it into a huge apartment complex or something, or another commercial building, or you just, you have it. So I really believe that there's no investment like real estate, period. There's just not. So. All
right, well, we got to do this again. I know I'm taking a long time. If somebody wants, there's a lot of people who follow this show who are interested in investing in real estate. And if Ryan Haywood's watching this, he's like the guy who reminds me of you. I always tell him there's a guy in Vegas who reminds me of you. His name's Carl Bassett. Carl Bassett's the one who reminds me of Ryan Haywood. If you guys are watching this video and you're looking to get started and you want to go and get a franchise, talk to Carl. Carl is... Say it again.
So Homevestors, we buy ugly houses on that.
No,
franchise.
But I'm saying, what's it called?
I'm the development agent. So
right.
If you want a franchise in Las Vegas, there's 13 offices total. There's 3 opportunities right now, so you'd be getting a resale from someone else. But there are opportunities right now, not a lot, but there are some opportunities if someone to buy a franchise that I think would make sense. It's not training wheels by any stretch. It's you. But it's just a marketing arm to get there. But there's a lot of training. There's conventions. If I go to one of my Homevestor conventions, I can be around guys that own 800 rentals, 1,200 rentals, 400 rentals. I can go get access to those guys. How do you get them? Another way.
Your network is your net worth. They always say, right?
Yeah. So it gives you access to guys that are very successful, huge.
Well, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met you if I didn't join that franchise.
Yeah, true.
So, and it's not an expensive franchise to get into.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Yeah, it's not an expensive franchise to get into. So, you want to tell people about yourself, do a little bit of outro?
I mean, through and through, I'm a real estate investor, right? I mean, I love rentals. I flip a number of houses. I have the guts to be able to do it because I learned the basics. If you can learn the fundamentals, the rest is just strategy. You learn the strategy through mentors, through people that actually know what they're doing, how to do it. But the basics are comping a property. That's huge. You can't go anywhere without comping. So that's that basic fundamental, and then the construction and the resale. So you do that by practice, and you do it a bunch, rinse and repeat. You just continue to do that. Once you do that, then it's a matter of changing your strategy. Once you get those basics down, and that franchise Homevestors teaches the basics as good as anyone in the country. Other franchises in comparison are significantly smaller. So Homevestors is about 1,200. They're the best at the education side.
Right.
So I think that's a big advantage on that franchise side. That's why I went the franchise route.
And I will tell you, if you're brand new to real estate and you are a guy who needs a franchise, then it's a great place to go. I certainly had one. It wasn't for me, but that's because I already had so many bad habits that it was just like, trying to retrain myself on something that I'm already doing. But I met a great amount of people, yourself included, Ike, a lot of Gus, who we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, real estate is a great way to get started. Flipping is a great way to start. Wholesaling is a great way to get started. I hope you learned something from this video. Definitely let us know. Carl's got so much things to talk about. We only had a certain amount of time. His time is valuable, and appreciate your time.
I appreciate you inviting me. It's cool.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
Cool.